blind guy making guitars. What the heck? Yeah, I make guitars like these, like those. And I do it with a rare disorder, hereditary disease called Stargardts. And people ask me all the time, well, what can you actually see? And looking at the camera, if I look at the camera like this, I can see the camera, but I can't see my hand. It attacks your central vision. And I do have a very small amount in my left eye of my central vision, but this is me standing in the mirror. And if I close my left eye, I become the invisible man. And if I close my right eye, this is how much of me I can see in the mirror. What that translates to when I'm working on a guitar is I can see this much of the guitar as opposed to what a normal person can see, and that's just kind of where I'm at. But I do make these guitars, and I was just going to make a quick video to kind of show people what it is that I do out here in the garage all day. So when I build a guitar, I go through and mill up and thickness all the pieces that I need for the build, and then I start out with the sides. I get my sides bent and placed into a mold that I built. Get the ends cut so that they fit well in the mold, and then bring them down to the head and tail block to the same size. Go through radius the edges so that the guitar has an outside curve to it all the way around, and then I make all my own kerfing, which is just kind of a flexible material that you use to line the inside of the guitar for strength and also to help hide the binding. You can add a little reinforcement, for your tops and backs to glue on. So just kind of a long process of cutting up bits and pieces. I have a CNC machine that I use to do the rosette and a lot of the smaller parts that I use on the guitar build. Comes in pretty handy. Go through and route out all the area that I need for placing the abalone shell or the inlay itself, or all that. And I do that on the CNC, and then scrape everything back flush once it's glued in. And I go through and in the same radius dish, radius all of my bracing so that it has the same arch as the top and back of the guitar. Get those glued in with some little carbon rods little deck that I made up out of carbon rods. You see all the blue tape there. It's just kind of to help me see what I'm doing, find my lines, and once the glue's dried, then I go through and clean up the edges so that everything will tie into the sides of the guitar. Get everything sanded and knock off some extra wood just for weight, and then I notch the sides after getting some measurements where those braces are going to fit and glue down into the sides of the guitar, so that gives a little extra support for the back and sides. Do the same thing with the carbon there, and use that to press down on the back to glue everything in place. And then I just repeat the same process for the top. Go through and put those in. Once everything is in place and glued up, then I do the same thing and go through and take those down so that I can glue them into the sides as well, and do a little extra work on the top. That's where most of your sound comes from, and you just kind of go through a process of voicing the top to make it actually put out more sound, or more of the sound that you want. You do that by taking more and more off of the braces in the places that you want to. But after that, same process, glue the top on, and once the glue's dried, go through and clean up those edges with a flush cut and some sanding, and I go through and re-scrape everything, get it as flush and smooth as I can on the sides before I route channels for binding. Once that's done, I bend my own binding, uh, go through and I have a process of gluing that in place, more blue tape, and then I built myself a little bungee contraption that I wrap the guitar with to keep pressure all the way around it and keep the binding tight. Route out a mortise for the top of the guitar where the neck's going to go in, and then clean up all the sawdust and set that body aside for finishing later. And then I move on to building a neck, where I take a neck blank that I built and cut an angle into it so I can put in a scarf joint. That's where the headstock's going to go. Puts the angle on the neck of the guitar. Get all that glued in place, and then cut blocks off the bottom end. Those blocks I use for making a heel, and I just kind of flip those back and forth and glue them together. That's where it's going to butt up against the guitar. After that, I brought in a channel for a truss rod, which adjusts the neck forward or back to make it a little easier for the player, a little more comfortable. And then clean off the extra wood for my guitar neck blank then to move on for the rest of the processes. After that, I go back to my CNC. I cut out the inlay, cut out the pocket for that, and then the actual headstock overlay in the on the CNC. Big time saver. I glue it in place where I want it then after that. And this is a little bit slower process for me, but I just cut out, leave a little excess around it, and then sand to the edges. I've had good results with it. It just works good for what I can do. And go back and do the same thing with the fretboard, and goes through and it cuts out the fretboard outline, and then I have a jig that I've made that I can pop the fretboard in and cut out the fret slots, and then glue in the shell. Once that's done, the fretboard can get radiused and then smoothed out, and then I go back to the neck and route out the tenon where it's going to fit into the guitar. After that, I take some measurements and draw out a line where my fretboard is going to go. Clean up a little more material on the neck, and then pre-bend some wire and go through and start installing frets with the press. I just kind of go through and do them nice and slow. Once that's done, just glue that together and band clamp it. And once the glue's dried, then go back through, clean up the sides, and put it in the guitar and get my measurements for my bridge, get that all taped off, and move into carving out the back of the neck. And I just kind of draw lines up where I want my profile and go from there. This is a slow process for me, and I just kind of take my time with it and go real slow, but a lot of sanding and till I get the neck profile that I want. Then I go through and drill in my side dot markers and super glue the little plastic sticks in there and clean everything back up, give it a nice final sand, and pop it in the guitar. And that is basically a finished guitar. Video's getting a little bit long, and I will just stop it there, and next on my post we'll do the finish process and see what it sounds like.